You know, it's crazy. This morning I was talking to my boys, and um, I was reflecting. You know, a couple years ago, I left um, where I was in South Carolina, and I was currently at the time I had just sold my franchise, and I was managing construction projects. I was a project manager, managing flips and stuff for investors. Some of them were my own, some of them were for other investors, and I was managing the flips. You know, we would acquire the property. I would go through all of that stuff, help the investor get through the loan process, all that good stuff, and then I would manage the complete construction and rehabilitation of the property. And then my ex was a realtor, so she would list the property and sell it. So we had multiple streams of income, but also multiple ways of helping secure that a good investment for the owner. Nothing bad about what I was doing. I loved what I was doing. I can get my hands dirty in a flip, as you'll see here pretty soon. So you know, all trades I can touch. What is it? I think in a couple weeks, you know, I'll also have my general contractor's license in North Carolina. So anyway, and so we were just reflecting on life. So I stopped doing all of that stuff. Essentially, pushed off a lot of the projects I was doing to other project managers, and um, put some of my investors probably not in the most amazing hands now looking back. But you know, I think everybody left off pretty good. I moved to Connecticut with my girlfriend essentially, and you know, I had some military, did another deployment, just a lot of stuff, right? I loved where I was in South Carolina, still love it, can't wait to get back, as a matter of fact. But my situation had turned, and it was time for me to move away. And as I was reflecting on it, you know, it's easy to, I thought about, you know, us as humans, right? It's so easy for you to look back and try to recount all of the mistakes that you made. You know, oh, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that, whatever. What you have to do is you have to be strong in realizing that, you know, sometimes that plan, that path you on, whatever, some of those things, there are powers that exist, right? And I'm not going to get all religious on you, but I'm going to tell you, in my experience, sometimes there are things that can happen that are out of your hands, out of your reach, you know, out of your strength and willpower. And sometimes you make a shift and you may not understand it at that moment, but later on it starts falling in place and you start going, ooh, you know, man, if I would have stayed stuck, if I would have stayed put, this might have not happened, or this might have not happened. You know, in the midst of my moving, I have my daughter, which I absolutely love. I have my three boys with me. You know, my girlfriend, you know, my financial situation has changed. You know, I absolutely love the job that I work, and things in that situation are improving. Completed more education, more certifications, more blah, blah, blah. You know, my focus is my ultimate point, has shifted. You know, I'm able to not only provide full time for my family, not saying I wasn't prior to, Lord knows, not saying I wasn't, but I'm able to provide comfortably, and I still got a lot of room to grow. But what's happening now is I'm able to notice some things that I wasn't noticing before, and that's where the power is. I would say that my relationship with God has improved, my communication, where I lay my stress, where I lay my worries, you know, I, you know, and go mob for all the Sigmas out there. You know, also just still in touch with community, you know, brotherhood, family, you know, essentially my focus, right? The businesses are doing well and improving. I have something I'm launching. So I said all that to say, like, when you kick back and you look at it and you know, you reflect and you go, man, what if I would have done this? But listen, what if you didn't? And that's something that you gotta be able to live with, you know, but you gotta understand it and you gotta appreciate it. So for me, that's why it's easy to come on here and talk and be thankful, because everything's not perfect in my life, for sure. Everything's not where I want it, that's for sure. But I can't imagine what it would be had I see. Money ain't everything, y'all, and let me be clear. I've been fortunate to do some things right, and they turned out very well. And then I've unfortunately, but also fortunately, done some things wrong, and they turned out bad. Right? I've experienced some of the good and earning, and some of the bad and acquired debt. I beat my credit up. I've done all of those things, but I've been fortunate to be able to push in a direction in which recovery is abundant. All right, and it's still a work in progress. And I also miss a lot of my Greenville family, especially my political family. Um, as far as the people that's just out here, and when I say political, I mean out here in the community, making it happen and speaking up for things that people need and deserve. So that's neither here nor there. I think the current administration keeps us pretty entertained. So anyway, yeah. So it's easy for me to get on these apps and talk about being thankful and being positive and looking forward, because there's so much brightness out there. So I just want to encourage you, if you're going through a dark moment, please take it from me, somebody that's still on a path of recovery, in a sense, from just some of the past, right? That there are brighter days, there are brighter moments. Whether you find some light in a partnership, brotherhood, sisterhood, your children, your family, your business, whatever the case may be, always look further, right? Circling back, I'm telling you, I've looked back plenty of times, right? Enough to where I had to really just like pinch myself and go, man, what if I would have done this, or what if I would have done that? And I sold this, but this could have turned into this. And I'm gonna tell you, especially in real estate, right? You learn this early when you're flipping properties, when you're investing. It's hard, y'all, right? One of my very a mentor that I have that has done very, very well told me a long time ago, don't ever look back at a property that you flipped, see that it increased, and beat yourself up about it, right? And it's kind of hard not to do that, right? So imagine, you flip a property, and let's say you make $50,000 in profit, and you put that $50,000 away, right? And it sold for $250,000, and then a year or two later, let's say two, I think this one was 2 or 3 years later, actually, you look back and that property just sold for $480,000, right? And you like, dang, what could I got? Listen, the what ifs, right? Check it out, because you could have stayed in that property, you could have held it for longer trying to wait on the right person, and the debt could have, the interest that was accruing could have surpassed your profit margin anyway. It would have drained the deal. Something could have happened to the property. If you were in a war zone, and what we call war zone is like a bad neighborhood, or maybe a drug infested neighborhood, or crime ridden neighborhood. It could be any of those things. So we call that war zone. So if it's in a war zone, other people could have stayed longer, and more drama could have happened. Somebody could have got killed in there. And a lot of times that pulls people from wanting to buy in the neighborhood, especially if it's like a big story, right? So it's a lot of factors that are in there. Hey, make sure you let her know. So a lot of things that are in that. So you can't look back and go, what if, oh man, I would have made 230,000 as opposed to 50,000. Although that sounds really good, right? You can't look back and beat yourself up, because you don't know the math in between those 2 points of time, right? So what you do is you look back and you allow that to be fuel for your potential and in the way that you strive. So I take that lesson and I apply it to the rest of life, right? And I look at, damn, this could have been like this, but I don't know what those moments in between would have been, right? Had I stayed in those situations, I don't know how bad things would have got in this, what things would have happened in this, and so on and so forth, and how much that would have cost, or how much debt that would amount up to. In certain situations, you give people power, and the longer you may stay in that situation, the more power you may give, the more leverage you may give, and then they start using that and weaponizing it, right? So then what's your reaction? I don't know what my reaction would have been in that time. So sometimes when you make a move or you take a leap of faith, that escape is necessary, because you're shortening, right? You're cutting off, you're stopping the bleeding, and then you're moving on to a different situation. Again, this don't just have to be relationship, right? Money, finances. Again, I've sold companies. I've done some of those things. I've been on consulting projects and etc. And sometimes it's hard, even if you're switching jobs, right? You're making a career move, right? You're deciding on going back to school or stopping for a moment, right? And refocusing and then getting back involved. So don't be afraid to take a leap, and don't ever look back and beat yourself up. Look back and learn. Hopefully that's the point you get from all of this. So just reflecting on my morning, I feel good. My boys, some handsome boys in here, they look good. My daughter, she sleeps, she's beautiful. Of course, my beautiful girlfriend. So we're gonna go out here and we're gonna conquer the day. I might post something, a little snippet or something of a new project that we're working on. But I got a goal. I'm going after it extremely hard. I am launching an app as well here pretty soon, in a couple weeks. We're working on some final kinks. It's gonna be pretty cool. We got the word out to Uber and DoorDash, and some conversations going for this app. I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to release it. I've been putting a lot of focus, time, and energy, and late nights, and coding, and all of that stuff, and design, and doing all that to make sure that if I have an opportunity to become the Black Elon Musk, and I definitely don't share his political views, because Lord, I don't think nobody does, but whatever. But if I have that opportunity, we're gonna take it, right? So shout out to my brother for that plug that he wanted me to throw in. But all right, y'all have a good day. Be good, do well, love and live life. Zion, want to say what's up? He said what's up. Mission accomplished. Jay.